Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, True Crime with Jess Rose. Um, Today, I'm going to do a little bit of a different story, and this isn't from a show that I've watched. It's actually something that I came across on YouTube, Google, just just various sites that I'd come across the story, and it's so bad that I didn't think I'd do it. But because, like a few of the stories that I've done recently, no one had heard of this one, again, I just felt bad about that. And I thought, because of what happened to this young girl, that I might do the story. I will warn you, it's it's a very graphic story that I'm about to do, so don't say I haven't warned you. And it's about a young girl called Junko Furuta. Now, she was born in Japan, Tokyo, on the 30th of April 1970, and just a very pretty girl, very, very pretty girl, doing well at school. She was 17, and everyone that had commented said she was very pretty, she was very bright, she was very popular. She wasn't interested, although she was popular, she wasn't interested in what a lot of the popular groups were doing, i.e. drinking or using drugs. She wasn't that way inclined. She's just very studious and had a nice group of friends, just a really nice girl. Well, there was a lad at the school called Hiroshi Miyano, who was 18, and he asked out Junko. And like I said, she's very pretty. He asked her out. And he was actually gobsmacked that she said no, because Hiroshi was connected to the Yakuza. Now, the Yakuza in Japan are the equivalent, I believe, of the mafia, let's say, in America, the triads in China. They're a very dangerous group of individuals, and he was connected to them. I mean, he was quite young, he was only 18, so I don't know how close he was within that gangster lifestyle, but everyone knew he was part of it, and he was shocked because she said no. She declined. She politely declined, but she said no. And Junko, it was said, was one of the few people that had ever said no to Hiroshi. He didn't take that very well. On the 25th of November 1988, Junko was riding her bike back from her evening job. She'd been to school and had finished her evening job now. I believe Japan would have the similar education system as, say, America, whereas in England we leave school at 16, they continue on to 18. So she was still in school, but she had this evening job. And as she was riding home, one of the lads she kind of knew, but he kicked her off her bike. And Hiroshi came in like a hero, picked her up and said, I'll look after you, I'll walk you back home. Very convincing that, it just playing a hero, that he was a friend, and she knew him. It's not like a stranger had picked her up off the bike and offered to walk her home. She knew him. But instead of taking her back to her hotel, Junko lived in like a village within Tokyo, and where her school was and where her job was, she was actually staying at a hotel during the week. So on their way to there, they passed a warehouse where Hiroshi raped Junko, and all the time telling her, you can't do anything about this, I'm part of the Yakuza. Then takes her back to her hotel and rapes her again. At 3 a.m, he still hasn't let her go. He met up with 3 other boys who said, well, we want to do this as well. They all went to the same school. And they actually took Junko back to a lad called, now I'm going to try and pronounce it, Nabaharu Minato. They took Junko back to his parents' house. And this is where her real nightmare began. Now, it's his parents' house, so you would think maybe she might stand a chance. But they passed her off as being Minato's girlfriend. And the parents allowed this to happen, and they brought Junko upstairs, the 4 lads did. And they started beating her and raping her. And don't forget, her parents haven't heard from Junko, so after a few days, they called the police. Yeah, remember me saying she didn't live at home permanently, so they might have thought, she's busy with schoolwork or so. But after a few days, they knew something was wrong, so they called the police. A manhunt began. The 4 lads, who were still holding her in this bedroom, got Junko to phone her parents and basically say she's fine, she's run away with a friend, call the manhunt off, and she'll be in touch. This is how manipulative and conniving these lads were. And it had been a few days, and in that time, they'd beaten any kind of fight out of her to try and get something across to her parents. And unfortunately, it was believed that she'd just gone off with a friend and she was fine. Now, like I say, Minato's parents, it was said to them that Junko was his girlfriend. When the 4 lads realised that she's not going to do anything, Junko, she's not going to run, that facade had stopped anyway. But because his parents knew of Hiroshi's connection to the Yakuza, these people must live in fear, because they could hear what was going on upstairs. They knew this girl wasn't leaving their house, but they still didn't do anything. They'd done nothing to help her at all. And the noise for what was going on, they've got to have heard what was going on. Now, I am going to do an kind of over, I don't know how to word it, but I'm going to tell you a few details of what happened to Junko. And as brutal as these details are that I'm about to tell you, there's even more. And like I said, I did see a lot of this on YouTube, so it's so hard to discuss. It really is. Now, there's a film being made called Concrete. It is in Japanese subtitles. Again, even the film can't depict what that girl went through. But the photos that you see online are taken from that film. So you can see photos, but they're not obviously of Junko. They're of what was found out was done to her, and it was done for the film purposes. But basically, she was hung from the ceiling while they beat her. She was raped not only by the 4 lads, but by anyone the lads wanted to invite in. So it was said she was raped over 400 times. 400 times. She was sodomised with scissors, with a firework that was set alight, with still red hot light bulbs. They starved her. They wouldn't let her eat. They wouldn't let her drink. She wanted to drink. Don't forget, they're eating and drinking round her. They're coming and going. They're living a normal life while she's in this room. They would put fluid on her legs, on her stomach, on her chest, and set fire to it and just leave it to burn to the point where Junko's really struggling to even move now. But on the 20th day, she nearly escapes. She was so close. She managed to get out of the house and got to her phone. Now, the struggle to have got there, given the pain and distress this girl would have been in. Now, remember I said 20th day, nearly 3 weeks she's been held so far. She was so close. But one of the boys who were coming and going happened to just be on his way back to the house, seeing her and dragged her back. It was very bad luck that he happened to be walking past at that particular time. Just your heart would stop. So, of course, they had to make her pay for that. So, when they got in, they've done very similar things to her again. And I have watched the film. And, like I say, I don't think it could ever get across what this girl went through. Because, obviously, you don't see a lot of what I've told you, but you do see where they set a light to her legs and, you know, the damage that was done to her. And by this point, she couldn't walk. After that beating, when she tried to escape, she couldn't walk anymore. She'd started to lose ability to. Well, she'd lost power in her bowels and her bladder. She couldn't hold it anymore for what they'd done to her. And basically, she begged them. They said numerous times, just end it. Just end it. I can't take anymore. Please just end it. And they wouldn't. They wouldn't. Her face, by this point, was unrecognisable. Her whole body was destroyed. And they still wouldn't, I suppose, put her out of her misery. You know, I think it escalated. I think what stopped. Now, what I didn't mention at the beginning was Hiroshi and these lads. This wasn't their first time not of doing this, but they had, over the previous year, been going out and grabbing girls off the street and raping them. It was a fun night to them. That's what they'd do. They'd let them go, but that's what they... So when Junko and that situation came about, I think originally it was, from their point, going to be the same thing. They were going to let her go. And I don't know when that switch came. It doesn't say, did someone say, let's keep her, or after beating her so badly, they knew they couldn't let her go. But on January the 4th, 1989, January the 4th, so she's had to go through Christmas. She's had to go through New Year. On the film, you see them celebrating. You see them jumping around. You see them picking her up from the floor to dance with her. She can't do anything. She's got no use of her leg. She's got no use of her body. I mean, it's beyond heartbreaking. This is possibly the most disgusting story I've done. For the amount of injuries they inflicted on this poor 17-year-old girl. And the most she did was what turned Hiroshi down for a date. That's what she did. That's what she did wrong. So on January the 4th, 1989, this is day 44. Yeah, 44 days and nights. They challenge her to a computer game. Because you do see on the film, you know, sometimes she'd be sat there with one of them in the room and they'd pass her the controls to this game because they'd be constantly on this video game, or they'd throw her a bit of food, or it was like she just became something in the room that they'd either notice or not. And when they did notice her, there was any more than, say, one in the room, that was where her beating would begin again, or whatever they felt like doing. I mean, they cut off her left nipple. I said they burnt her just in spots on her body, like gaping wounds that were on her body. And they challenged her to this computer game, and Hiroshi lost. I don't know how she did it, but she beat him. That baffles me. That baffles me quite a bit, that bit, because I've heard she was challenged to the game, and then in the film you see the lads play each other and he loses, Hiroshi. So I'm not too sure about that. And given the state of her at that point, I don't quite get that bit. So I'm not too sure about that, whether it was her or it was the lads playing. But either way, Hiroshi lost this computer game, so obviously devastating. Obviously, he's lost a computer game now. So they start beating her again. They're punching her. They're kicking her. They have obviously gym equipment in the room, as lads do with the barbells. They beat her mercilessly with barbells. They light candles and drip the wax into her eyes. When she's on the floor, they drop iron bars onto her stomach, set fire to her. Apparently, this assault lasted a few hours, this last one, and finally, she succumbed to her injuries and she died. 44 days. I did warn you, it's a graphic story, it is, and, you know, there's some details, because in some places you'll read it and the details say, some they're not, some are on the film. It's so bad anyway, I don't want to say these other things that I've heard to embellish. I don't know if these have been said just to embellish an already horrific story. It was like the James Bulger story. Now, I don't need to remind anyone how horrific that was and how disgusting that was, what was done to that poor child. But you can go online at any point and you'll hear embellishments of the story, different versions, and I just think, we know that details haven't been released, yet people have invented their own. And it's like, was it not bad enough for you? Was that particular story not bad enough? You had to add your own little twist to it. And that's what I'm not going to do. So, although I have heard and watched more graphic explanations of this story, because they're not consistent, you don't hear them in everything I watch or research, I'm not going to put that forward because I don't know if it's true. Everything I've read to you, everything I've said to you is what I have read, and it's consistent on what I've watched. So, and I think they're bad enough. I think those details are bad enough without someone going, oh, you know what, let's add a bit more in there. Why was this not enough, what this poor girl went through for 44 days, that you've got to throw your own little mix in? Sorry, I feel quite strongly about that. I think, you know, these stories are people's lives, they're people's children, and you're not happy with how bad it was. You want to make it worse. I don't get that, and I will not do that. So anything I say on my channel is looked into and double checked, and you may, after watching any of my videos, look, but I heard this happen. The reason I'm not doing that is, like I say, if I'm not sure of the source, I'm not going to repeat it. So with that being said, sorry, rant over, she did succumb to her injuries and she passed on the 44th day. And 24 hours later, they wrapped her up in a travel bag and they put her in a 55-gallon drum and filled it with wet concrete and just disposed of the drum in Tokyo. Just discarded. They were done. There we go. Now, like I mentioned, these lads were known. They were raping girls quite often. It wasn't a one-off here and there. This was their thing. This was their Friday night kicks, if you like. And the 4 boys were brought in for questioning over a different case. Well, Miyano, which is Hiroshi, thought he was being brought in because of Junko, and he thought one of the other lads, I will give you a list of the names, one of the other lads had spoken. He thought that's what they were talking about. So he told them where the drum was and what had happened and who was in the drum. And the police were confused because they knew the girl wasn't dead. The girl came to them, say these lads had attacked her. So they knew she wasn't dead. And Hiroshi Miyano is talking about a dead girl in a drum. So he gave himself 100%, he gave his confession away, believing that one of the other lads had spoken. Now, all 4 lads, once Junko's found, all 4 lads are charged. But because of their ages, the judge wanted their names withheld. Now, given that Hiroshi was part of the Yakuza, whether it be low ranking or not, a journalist who was so disgusted at the case leaked their names. So Tokyo became aware of all 4 of their names, even though the judge had obviously tried to stop that happening. And given the severity of the case, like I say, in different countries, they have different ages for whether you're tried as an adult or a child. And I think sometimes it does depend on the severity of what you've done, how you're tried, and these were tried as adults. But what they did, they pleaded guilty to the charge of bodily harm resulting in death, which is a much lower prison sentence than murder. Very close. So I'm going to say their names now. Please bear with me. Hiroshi Miyano, who was 18, so the eldest of the 4. Eldest of the 4, and at the forefront, obviously, he was the one who took Junko to the warehouse, the hotel, was the leader, if you like. He got 17 years, tried to appeal it. I've got to admit, I like the Japanese law system from what I'm hearing of it, because he tried to appeal his 17 years. They added another 3 on, for, I don't know, for his cheek or what, or re-looking at the case and how disgraceful it was, but he got another 3 years. Joe Agura, who was 17, he got 8 years. Yasushi Watanabe, who was 17, he got 5 to 7 years. And Nobuharu Minato, remember the lads who played Junko off as his girlfriend, he was only 16. He was 16 years old in his family's home. And he had a brother there as well. And all 4 of them were so scared that they allowed this to happen because of Hiroshi, which is awful. He got 4 to 6 years, but he tried to appeal it as well. And I don't know if it was because of the fact that it was in his home and his parents, now I'm not sure, but he's got up to 9 years. Now, the terms aren't great. You know, the by the 20s, Hiroshi got, no, none of them. I'm saying a lot of Japan. The only reason I said that is because on appeal here, it usually knocks a few years off and they've added them on. But, I mean, the time they were given for what they did, why were they allowed to plead to bodily harm resulting in death? You know, why were they allowed to plead to that? I don't understand any of that. And the jury member, one of the jury members actually fainted after hearing what had happened to Junko. The judge, the sentencing, actually said her soul will never be able to rest. Her soul will be wandering in torment of what happened to her. I mean, there's some stories I've done, and, you know, each and every one in their own right is graphic and sad, and, you know, this one just, again, there's a lot of stories I've done that are pointless, but this one just, it stuck with me. You know, it did go back to 88. It's possibly one of the oldest stories I've done. But, oh, the poor girl, if these can't be forgotten, that this actually happened, it can't. That there were boys out there that because one of them happened to have a little bit of power, thought that this was okay. This was okay to do. I mean, it was winter when they'd taken her. She had to sleep on the balcony. The house, the pictures that I've seen, it's obviously 2-floor house, and the bedroom's got a balcony, so they used to just put her out there because they didn't like how she smelled anymore. They did that. They inflicted that on her. And because she obviously couldn't use the toilet anymore or anything, she smelled too bad and she looked too bad for them. They used to put her out on the balcony because they didn't want to look at her or smell her anymore. I mean, I think that shows their age as well. I think it's just sickening. On the 2nd of April 1989, her funeral was held, and a friend read a beautiful tribute to her. It's very long, but it does end with their principal, their headmaster, actually presented Junko, obviously not her, but she was presented a graduation certificate. So it's class that she got to graduate with her class. I mean, she was so studious. This girl would have gone on to hopefully have had an amazing life. She didn't want to get into the drink and the drugs and, you know, be part of all that crowd at school. She was going somewhere. And because she turned one boy down who, whatever power he believed he had completely gone to his head, she wasn't just killed, she was tortured and sodomized and raped and 400 times. It doesn't even sound plausible, but it happened. She's actually buried at Wakasu Park in Tokyo. Her mum, as you would imagine, was devastated. There's not even a word I can use. She had a mental breakdown. She needs psychiatric help. Hearing that, what help could you give to her mum after hearing that happened? And yeah, that's the story of Junko Furuta. Like I say, it was one that I wasn't sure about doing. It is very graphic. It is very brutal and sad, but it does go back a long time. But she had so much to live for. I feel like, again, like all my stories, it shouldn't be forgotten. It shouldn't be left. A lot of people haven't heard of it. And for what happened to her, people should know. People should know what happened, and that there are people out there like that where they can get swept along and things can escalate, and what 4 very young teenage boys are capable of. And it's quite scary to think of that. But yeah, it did play on my mind, and I was a bit dubious about doing it, but I have done it, and I have warned you. I did warn you. But thank you for joining me again. I really do appreciate it. If you've got any comments, you know, if there's anything you'd like me to look at, or any details, or if you'd like to subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. Just if you press the button, it just means you get my videos first before anyone else. And yeah, just thank you so much again for joining me. Thank you, and I'll see you soon. Take care.